Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
I'm Ted.
And today we'll be covering what does your race say about you? The master race, the Dwarf.
Why don't you jump down to the description below, sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get weekly gaming tips as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Alright, so if you guys have been hanging out here for a little while, you know, like, one of my favorite races is the Dwarf. And, like, no matter, like, Ryan was talking about putting together a game, and I'm, like, trying to play something I haven't played, and yet I still want to play some kind of version of a Dwarf. I'm really stuck with it. So this series, much like What Does Your Class Say About You, is going to be about the race and how that's going to influence your decisions when you make a character and how you portray that character. You know, there's going to be some commonalities that are going to be really hard to escape for certain races because of the way that you're brought up and raised and things that are ingrained in you, unless you have a completely alternate, backstory or something like along those lines.
Like you were raised by a non of your race, in this case, non-dwarf. But you could also take some of those same things and say, well, I'm a human raised by a dwarf, similar to Caddy Bree, so she's got the dwarven accent, she's got some of the dwarven mannerisms. So you could take this as a way to say, well, you know what, I want to play this race, but be a little bit more like that race.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So in this case, like right off the bat, dwarves are kind of dour and no nonsense, and very industrial people, but at the same time they're very fair.
Right. So the dwarves they're hardy. They're not afraid of a day's labor, and they, for the most part,
I would go a step further and say they actually revel in it. They kind of take pleasure in simple things like that. They love to rot things with their hands. Whether it's extracting ore from the ground and making a hole, or turning
that ore into
an object. Yeah. So at their hearts, they very much are craftsmen, and they love to work with their hands and the trades, for the normal dwarf. So it's definitely going to affect them. Most dwarves are stubborn, and many suffer from avarice. In some ways they're like dragons. They just like to have it. Mm-hmm. And they can be stingy, but at the same time, they're very much the Scrooge McDuck of the fantasy races, because they don't like where like a halfling would want to acquire wealth to spend it and have comforts. A dwarf just wants to acquire it and have it, mm-hmm. and they may still just live miserly, no matter how much wealth they have.
Right. But when they get into crafting, they're willing to spend more time on something to work out that one finite detail, or to remove that one minimal imperfection.
They're one of the long-lived races, so they take the long view on things.
Right. Now, I'm taking my own personal take on things, and I've talked about before that I do miniature painting and modding, and I have friends that are into the same. Now, I've spent hours on an individual model and I'm happy with it, and yet I've known a friend who spent 40 hours on a single paint job on a single miniature, and he's like, yeah, I'm about halfway done. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I just can't do that. Like, I don't have that long view.
Well, in D&D, there's essentially two races that are the longest lived, and that is the elf and the dwarf, and the dwarf lives half as long as the elf, essentially. Uh-huh. But the dwarf will focus on a single pursuit and seek to perfect and master that, where I feel like an elf will work on multiple things and go like, well, I'm going, what if, so I might spend 100 years here, 100 years there, but, at the end, it's all the same.
Right. They want to try lots of things, whereas the dwarf is like, I'm going to be awesome at this.
They're single-minded in it. They're single-minded in their approach, and they're very direct. Mm-hmm. Where an elf may be might flip from thing to thing, you know, but in their mind, they have plenty of time, so they're just going to go back to it. So what if I mix up my 300 years of working on this thing over the course of the 1,000 that I'm going to live?
And you know, going on what you're saying about them being direct, they don't feel the need to hold back their opinions. They're going to be in your face about it.
Yes, you know, the dwarven tact is not very tactful, and yeah, of course. So the way you can play your dwarf character is either you can really espouse these traits, or you can go the opposite. You know, a dwarf wearing gregarious and loud clothing, you know, is going to be a far departure from the normal you'll find in a dwarven hold.
Right.
You know, a dwarf, you know, loud and boisterous dwarves aren't nearly as common.
Mm-hmm. Well, dwarves are known for being able to make a ruckus, but loud clothing and, you know, all of that, they're not going to know what to do with them.
So yeah, so these are different ways. Like my own dwarf Uthengar that I play, like I actually play him a little off from a normal dwarf, in the sense that the things that he does that are very dwarfy, he does them intentionally to people that expect it, and he almost does it as a way to mess with them.
It's been pretty fun having Uthengar at the table and interacting with some of the players and NPCs.
So I think that pretty much boils down the dwarf for me anyway. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Like Dave was saying, you can take this and run with all of these stereotypes and play the dwarf's dwarf. You can focus on a single aspect and say, this is what I want to have for my character, or you can throw it all in the face of dwarves and play someone that goes against tradition, not going to be a drinker, not going to be a craftsman, and, you know, runs into the face of chaos and doesn't stick to one thing, and have a cool story, but have a reason for why. You know, is he running from something? Is there something in his past? Has he never been around or spent long amounts of time with other dwarves? It's highly possible, and you know, you don't have to follow all of these things, but it's a way to be able to help you out role playing your dwarf in your campaign.
Exactly what he said. You guys, let us know, how do you see dwarves? Do you play them different in your game? Are they different in your campaign world? Let us know in the comments below while you're at it. Like, share, and subscribe.
You can head over to nerdarchy.com and check out the cool stuff over there.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.